Hey, I just wanted to hop on real fast and record a little bit. I just finally finished the first draft of my Legacy of Lucky Logan Book 3, Bones in Blackbird. So I wanted to record a little bit really fast on that experience because I usually say, oh, I'll do that later, and then I never get to it, and then I kind of forget all the details. But essentially, this book was a pretty difficult one compared to book one and book two of this series. I think a few things made it that way. One, this book was much, much more complicated than book one or book two. The storyline, the plot was a lot more complex. It had a lot more moving pieces. It also had to kind of wrap up a story arc that had started in book one, and then also start kind of a new story arc that would then carry through book six, because this is a planned 6-book series. So it was kind of like I had to wrap some things up, but also start some new things. I had to make sure that enough questions were answered, but then also some new questions were asked to keep people interested. There was more characters involved throughout the entire book, which in book one and book two, it was mostly just Van and Holt, or Van and Charlotte, or just the three of them, and there ended up being quite a few more characters, or I guess in book two, Van and Sally. But in book three, it ended up being more characters involved more often, so that also complicated things. There was a whole lot more emotions being dealt with at certain points in time, and then there were some crazy big action scenes. One action scene was like 10 pages long, which at the time was the longest action scene I'd ever written. And then there ended up being, at the climax of this book, I think the action ended up going across like 2 whole chapters or something. So it was a lot to handle, a lot to wrangle, to try to make it make sense. And then, of course, I had a lot of self-doubt and second guessing coming in, because there's actually people reading this series now and really enjoying it and really looking forward to this book 3. And so, of course, that puts, some pressure on you as the author to try and deliver something that they will enjoy. So that made me kind of second guess basically everything. So that was interesting. I had to kind of work through that eventually, just, to try to avoid, say, the George R. R. Martin syndrome, essentially. Of course, his is on a massive scale, but even my tiny little readership has kind of knocked me off a little bit. So I had to finally just say, you just can't worry about it. You just have to write what feels right to you, and move on and cross your fingers. But also for this book, I had mentioned in my previous video, I believe, that I was not plotting anymore, because I mentioned how much that had derailed me with this book. And as I got to the later chapters in this book, that only became more apparent. So I definitely know that with these books, this series at least, I really should not plot in any way, shape, or form, essentially, because it just really shuts down that subconscious kind of, I don't even know what it is, subconscious story sense or whatever. Doesn't work if I plot more than like a 2-sentence summary of what the next chapter should be. I'm also planning a video where I will go into more depth between plotting and outlining versus knowing what I'm going to write next, because those are 2 entirely different things. And I realize that some people might be confused and think that they're the same thing, but they're not. So, like for instance, with book 3, I had written a 2-sentence summary of what would happen basically in what I thought were the last 3 chapters, and each chapter had a 2-sentence, like, this is what happens, this is what happens, this is what happens. That 3 chapters ended up being like 6 chapters. So it was kind of funny that I think even one chapter that was 2 sentences ended up being 3 of those 6 chapters. So yeah, it ended up being quite a bit more complicated than I had expected from my little simple summary. But there were definitely a few things with this book that were quite challenging. The complexity of the plot, the action, and the depth of emotion that was in this one, the ending and beginning of trilogy story arcs, essentially, the outside, well, the pressure I put on myself to deliver something that readers would enjoy. And then, of course, my lovely experience with attempting to plot and finding out that it was a disaster. However, all of those things were eventually overcome, and I managed to write the end today. Today is July 29th. Tomorrow is my 39th birthday, so I was really, really hoping to get it done before my birthday so that I could just enjoy tomorrow and relax and not have to worry about trying to wrap this thing up, and I am so happy that that actually happened. It ended up being 137,000 words, which is 27,000 words longer than book 2, and book 2 was 40,000 words longer than book 1. So the series definitely keeps getting longer and longer. Probably book 4 will go back to being a little bit shorter because the plot for that one is going to be quite a bit more simple than book 3 was, but should be still fun. So yeah, it was 137,000 words. I wrote it in 7 months total. I took December completely off. Started it last November for National Novel Writing Month. It's a pretty clean draft because I used the writing into the dark method. I do need to fix some things in the beginning that I kind of changed my mind on, so I need to go back and fix those according to my new plan, and then I'll just do a complete read through to check for consistency, make sure my timeline is right, and do some little tweaks here and there. But essentially it is pretty much done. After my beta readers go through it, I will add an epilogue. I always like to make the epilogues outside of the main character's point of view to give readers kind of a glimpse of what else is happening in the world that he doesn't know about. And I have like 10 different options of what could possibly go at the end of this book. So I'm going to wait till beta readers read it. I'm going to ask them what they think would be most satisfying for readers to be able to see outside of Van's point of view at that point. And then we'll go from there. But that probably won't be too long. It'll probably only be like 1,500 words, maybe 3,000 at the most. So anyway, this is going to be kind of a monster of a book, but I do still plan to release it in September of this year. That would keep with my release. I've been releasing a new book in this series every 9 months, so that would fit perfectly in that timeline. And then, of course, I also really want to get the final draft to Roger Clark, my narrator, so he can get started on the audiobook as well, because obviously that takes a while to produce and go through as well. So I want to get it out as soon as I can, close to the print and ebook release. So I will let you know how that goes. But yes, next week I will start the edits, then it will go to betas, then I will make any final adjustments and send on to Roger. He can start that process. And in the meantime, I will be getting ready for Planet Comic Con in Kansas City, Missouri, which is at the end of August 20th, 22nd. I have to check on that. But I will be giving some panels, and I will have a table there selling some books. So if you're in the area, come by and see me. You can grab your own copies there. But that's what I'll be doing in the next month. So crazy busy. Hope y'all are having a good summer. And I gotta run. I got lots of stuff to do, as usual. But anyway, I just wanted to get some thoughts down on this crazy, crazy book. Definitely taught me a lot. Mostly, I would say the takeaways for this one are to trust myself, trust my subconscious story sense, just do what feels right, trust my gut, and don't plot. I think that's about it. Oh my goodness. All right, that is it for me, and I will see you all later. Bye.